Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the backyard. It's been quite a while since I've been back here to cook. I spent the last 2 months being in Texas. As much fun as it was to help open up the restaurant at Leroy and Lewis and hang out with the guys at the Chud Shop, very, very happy to be home. And as we get ready for the barbecue season, and I would say we're technically in it right now as it being May, but I want to talk about certain things specific to smokers. And in today's video, I wanted to specifically focus on fireboxes. Compare pros and cons to certain design ideas. I am not a pit builder. I just happen to have cooked on a bunch of different smokers. Because of that, I just have my own preferences, and I want to share those preferences with you guys today. So the first one that I want to talk about is just kind of like the shape and design of the firebox itself. Nowadays, most fireboxes are round because they're either cut from propane tanks or they're rolled steel. But back in the day, and every now and then I'll see it pop up, is having square fireboxes. And what I want to do is talk about pros and cons of both a square firebox and a round firebox. With a square firebox, because you have that flat bottom, it's pretty easy to build a fire on top, especially if the type of fires that you like to build are kind of like doing the Lincoln logging. It's super easy just because you have a flat bottom to build off of, and as you start to build more height, it's structurally more sound. And for me, that's kind of where the pros of the square firebox kind of end. As much as I love the simplicity of it, and it's pretty straightforward how to build a fire from there, it doesn't really allow you to be as flexible in the way that you build your fires. I would say you almost have to start your logs kind of being parallel to the firebox, just so that as air kind of gets pulled through, you don't have a log that's going across where it's blocking all the airflow underneath. The other thing that I don't like either, if I were to put 4 logs in a square firebox, the 2 that are sitting at the bottom are really there just to lift the 2 logs on top. Like, you're really only burning the 2 logs that are sitting on top. Opposed to a round firebox, I mean, technically you could build enough coals to where it's like a flat bottom. Your coal bed creates a flat surface underneath kind of like the bowl of the firebox, and then you can start Lincoln logging the same way. But personally for me, I prefer to put my logs kind of perpendicular or across the firebox. You have all this air that's able to flow underneath without necessarily having to bury your base logs into the coal bed. So if you have 2 logs that are sitting in the bottom and 2 more logs that are on top, you're able to burn all 4 logs pretty efficiently. So again, shape of the firebox itself, not really a huge concern because I don't really see many fireboxes like that anymore. But if you do come across it, I would say if you have a choice, definitely go with the round one. Next thing that I want to talk about is actually the firebox door. The firebox door is not something that a lot of people actually think about. I don't really hear a lot of people talk about it until it becomes an issue. One of the issues that you could come across is that the firebox door itself is not super thick and the firebox is not reinforced. Meaning, if your firebox door, if the material is thin and it's not supported, then as your fire gets really, really hot, it can start to warp your door. You'll see doors that are too thin when you're buying smokers from like Home Depot or Lowe's and things like that, where these smokers have the shape and the look of an offset smoker, but because the materials themselves aren't that great, everything just starts to pop and bend and warp. But again, if you're spending a certain amount of money, most smokers don't have that issue, but it is something to kind of keep in the back of your mind when you're looking at different designs and you're asking pit builders about certain details. That is something that you want to think about. The second thing that I want to address about firebox doors is kind of the aesthetic of the door, the vents and all these different flaps and things like that that a firebox can have. And I will say it looks really, really cool when you get a firebox that has a really unique design, and the thought process is usually that you can latch that door tight and have these different openings to where it allows for air to travel and spin and move in a certain way in the hopes that it's going to allow the distribution of the heat and the airflow to be a lot more even across the cooking chamber. While I love the functionality of that, and it's something that, again, I'm not a pit builder, so I don't fully understand, and I also don't pretend to understand how all of these kind of aerodynamic stuff works inside of a smoker. you know, for myself and for simplicity's sake, I prefer to not have any vents on my doors. When I was first starting to learn how to barbecue, trying to learn how to get enough air in there and to get my fire management proper and trying to get my heat as even as I possibly can from end to end, and I was trying to overthink so many variables, and I would leave these little marks on my vents on my firebox door, thinking that like, oh, if I just open this up just a little bit more, like it's gonna be perfect, or if I close it a little bit more, it's gonna ruin it. And even now, with all the time that I spent cooking barbecue, when I see a firebox door with all these different kind of options, I get a little overwhelmed thinking that I need to do something with it. But I'm a simple person and I don't feel like I need all that kind of stuff. You guys see me in my videos, I wear the same black shirt, apron, and jeans in almost every single video. Why? Because it's easy. And I think if we think about the function of a firebox door as just that, if it's too hot, you just open the door. If it cools down a little bit too much, then you close the door a little bit. And if the door is closed and it continues to dip, then you build a bigger fire. So I think having all these functions on a smoker are cool, but really at the end of the day, the thing that you need to focus on is managing your fire. And once I've learned how to do that, basically anytime I cook on a smoker that has all these vents, I close all of them and just use a door as if it was just one flat door with no vents on it whatsoever. Another thing that I want to talk about in terms of the firebox door that I think most people don't really think about, just because I don't think it's as big as an issue now as it was before. One thing that I used to see a couple years back when new pit builders coming out and they're trying to build a firebox and especially the door to be a little bit more efficient, they made the firebox door too small. I think the hope was if you cut the door smaller, anytime you open up that door to refuel or check on the fire, that you won't have a bunch of this heat escaping through the door. But in reality, anytime you're opening that door is really only to refuel the fire. And I've never had any issue where my firebox was so big that if I opened it, it let all the heat out. And I don't think that people were actually thinking about it until they were using it pretty often, when they realized that this door is so small that my splits that I have pre-cut, I can't just put them in the way that I want. Like you had to like put it in the firebox and then turn it and then place it down in order to kind of get these splits that you already have cut to fit through your firebox door. This is an issue on some commercial smokers, but really most of the ones that I probably have problems with are the ones that, you know, you get from like Home Depot's, Lowe's, and those kind of places. Again, where trying to take this design of an offset smoker and just shrinking it down as much as they can and trying to give you something that appears to be a good smoker. All right, now last thing that I want to talk about in terms of fireboxes, and this is probably a thing that most people thought I was going to talk about or focus on, is a firebox that's insulated versus non-insulated. Probably more than anything else, this is the one that I get asked most when it comes to fireboxes. And if you guys have been watching my videos for a while, I'm pretty sure I've been on record saying many times that I'm not a fan of insulated fireboxes. And that's coming from someone probably a third to a quarter of the year. It is cold. But even with that, I still don't like an insulated firebox. The one question I ask people who are kind of in between of deciding what they want to get, I ask them, where do you live? And I would say more often than not, I'm talking to someone who's probably has like 1 or 2 cold months a year, and it's not even that cold. And I think because they're trying to prepare for those moments, they're not thinking about the entire year, they're thinking about fixing the issue for that short period of time. So then when it gets really hot outside, now you're having to deal with an insulated firebox for, 8-10 months out of the year where, you want to be able to control your fire as much as you can, but you can't because the insulated firebox is too efficient and you're not really able to get as much smoke on your food as you want to. At least that's my opinion. So my 250 is not an insulated firebox, but it's also not insulated. My 250 gallon is insulated, but it's insulated with a 2-inch air gap. 2-inch air gap allows you to do, when it's really hot outside, it's still able to allow heat to escape. When it's cold outside, it keeps enough heat in there to where your fire is not just completely dying. I don't really understand the science of it. All I know is the 2-inch air gap is my favorite insulation on any firebox I ever used. And my biggest reason for not being a fan of insulated fireboxes is because I feel like it takes away a little control from you. My fire management style is building a really good coal bed and throwing logs on top of there to make maintain the smoke that I'm looking for. The way I think about cooking barbecue is your coal bed is your heat source, and then the logs that you place on top are giving you the smoke and also the convection. But let's say you're cooking on a fully insulated firebox with the same amount of coals. Because it's insulated, it's gonna keep that temp a lot higher, a lot longer. So when I throw on a log or 2 logs because I want to get that smoke and that convection, it often ends up being a little bit too hot. So now you have to open that door to let some heat out, or you have to go in there and scoop out some coals just so that that radiant heat isn't constant all the time, and now you can afford to throw a log in there. So to me, it's a little less intuitive because you always have to consider the fact that it's gonna be a little bit more hot, which is fine if you're trying to finish something. Like if you're trying to finish briskets, you're trying to finish pulled pork, you're trying to finish rack of ribs, I think an insulated firebox is perfect, and that's the situation that I would want it the most. But when you're trying to do certain things like add more smoke or add more convection into your cook so that, you know, for example, for briskets, if we want to get that nice dark color on there, and as it starts to expel moisture, we want to wick it off with a little more convection. If your firebox is already too hot with a coal bed, you know, you might not be able to put in some logs where you're able to get some actual air whipping around in there. So would I say that an insulated firebox is bad? No, it's not. There's so many people, probably more people nowadays have insulated fireboxes than non-insulated fireboxes, and everyone comes out with great food. It's really more about how you like to build your fires, how you want your barbecue to be. I just personally think that a semi-insulated firebox with a 2-inch air gap just allows me to be a little bit more flexible in how I like to cook. If I want to build a smokier fire, I know I can probably throw a log or 2 in there without having to worry about my temp spiking like crazy. And also, if my coal bed gets a little bit too hot before I throw another log, like I don't have to worry about scooping hot coals and finding a place to put them somewhere just because my smoker is too hot. And also the thing is, it's cheaper too. So that's another plus. But anyway guys, so that's kind of like my thought process on fireboxes and things that I like and don't like. And if you guys are in the middle of building a smoker or buying a smoker, hopefully this will help you out to determine maybe certain things that you might not have considered. But let me know in the comments down below, are you team insulated, team non-insulated, team semi-insulated firebox? And let me know your reasons why. That's it for this video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to like, subscribe, share this video with friends, and I'll see you guys in the next one.